Evening. Wait a couple minutes for a couple people to join. Right, let's get into it. So today's live is going to be about supplements, something that everyone has probably either heard of, or tried a bunch, and probably been told by someone, been recommended this or that, or without really knowing ins and outs of it, pros and cons, and the evidence behind it. So I'm just going to run through a couple of supplements, what they do, what they are, and how they'll help you get achieve your goal. So supplements, as the word suggests, provides an alternative source of nutrients that may be deficient in your current diet. So common examples include protein. A lot of people struggle to have or intake enough protein in their diet, so they seek supplementation um, to cover the downfall that they have from actually eating food. Other examples include creatine, BCAAs, leucine, and caffeine. Depending on your training goals, different supplements are recommended in different doses. Supplements have also been used to increase the amount of nutrients past the recommended daily amount to help you reach your targets. For example, protein and greens mix, for examples, have been used by athletes who don't consume enough protein or macronutrients in the form of vegetables because they're either diet because of their dietary restrictions or lack of variety in their diet. So, if, for example, you're a bodybuilder training for a show, you might be limited in the amount of calories you can actually consume, but you still need to hit your protein intake for that day. You might need to hit that protein intake, but you can't sacrifice the macros that you've got set for that day, for example. So if you've got 60 grams of protein left that you need to hit, but you've only got 2-3 grams of fat, the chance of you getting a meal that ticks all those boxes are very slim. So that's when they lean on supplements to try and bridge that gap in their in their dietary restrictions. Right, so let's get started with the most common supplement of them all, protein. Protein powders can be found in the cupboards of both elite athletes and the casual gym goer. They're um, they're very easily sought after. You find them on shelves. You find them in protein different forms, the protein bars and shakes and protein-rich meals. One thing you do need to consider is a lot of time when you see protein slapped on a piece of food, or increased protein, more often than not, it's not a protein enriched food. It's just got more protein than their previous or their regular counterpart, for example. Um, but yeah, just a little heads up for that one. But yeah, so there are five major types of protein powder. Whey protein is probably one that everyone knows about. Whey protein is the most common form of protein, as it is known to be the most favorable form due to its favorable amino acid content and easy absorption. So whey protein contains all 9 essential amino acids, which you need to make it a complete protein. Whey protein also contains a high concentration of leucine, which is critical in muscle building. So this is why it's the most common form. It's also not that expensive, so you probably see, well, compared to the more purer forms that we'll go into later on in this live, it's not as expensive as the other forms. Because, like, for example, the next form is whey concentrate. Whey concentrate is considered one of the lowest quality options due to its limited refinement process, so it's not as refined as original whey protein. The majority of whey protein contains about 80% of protein. 80% of its weight is protein itself, but the whey concentrate sometimes is 80% or less, and the rest of that weight is made up of carbohydrates and fat. So, excuse me, if you are someone that's conscious of their carbohydrates and fat intake, so if you are an athlete or if you're training towards a goal or if you're just trying to work for weight loss and you're very very anal about your nutritional input, having something like a whey concentrate could be potentially detrimental in your long term goals, as it will be a waste of a carbohydrate and fat when there are options out there such as whey protein, where it has considerably less fat and carbohydrates, where you can have that protein intake that you're desiring, but you're not going to be sacrificing um, the fats and carbs which you could be ingesting from an actual meal. Um, so the third form of protein is a whey isolate. Whey protein adopts its name. Um, whey isolate adopts its name as anything um, that includes 90% or more protein in its whole, or protein by weight. Uh, the extensive refinement process and increased purity is the reason why it's the main source of protein for athletes. It's also reduced in lactose content, which is ideal for anyone who has dietary restrictions. So all these benefits contribute to this. All these benefits also contribute to its hefty price tag. So you probably see whey isolate that are slightly more expensive than the just the regular whey protein. Um, but it's because of these benefits where you'll have fast absorption, you have a higher quality protein, and you don't have that lactose, which is a lot of people are allergic to some degree. Whey hydro hydrolysate is also a fast digesting protein, which can be usually tolerable, which is usually the most tolerable for athletes. Whey protein has also been shown to be effective as traditional whey protein, in some instances, even more effective than stimulated muscle protein synthesis in animal testing. This is usually the most expensive form of whey protein due to the benefits and also because it's hard to come by. So this is probably something you don't see often on the shelves, but it's something that's used by the higher caliber athlete because of its ability to absorb better in the muscles, its ability to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, as it's shown in testing previously. But because it's hard to find and it is a higher quality protein, it is going to be on the more expensive side. So if I was to advise anyone to get any sort of protein, it will definitely just be um, the whey protein, because you get the best bang for your buck. You get the most, you get the highest grade protein possible without having the effects of increased carbohydrates or increased fat content, and it's not too painful on the purse string. So I probably would recommend that one, but definitely give them a go. And if you are looking for a plant-based option, if you are vegan, there are plant-based proteins. This is an option for people that have dietary restrictions, such as veganism or vegetarianism, or if you're lactose intolerant, for example. Um, Although it's missing some essential protein amino acids, which make it a incomplete protein source, it is still a good source of protein for those who have protein deficiencies, which is very common for those who are uh, vegan or um, people who are just vegetarian in general. Another thing that you probably hear a lot of, especially nowadays, been picking up a lot of traction online, is creatine. So creatine is one of the most popular and most researched supplements you can get on the market today. It's a naturally occurring substance that is obtained through consumption of red meat and fish. It is often consumed in the form of supplementations for those who don't consume a lot of these foods in their diet, and also within the athletic community due to the performance benefits associated with them. Um, so a lot of times people have supplementation, like I said at the beginning, people have supplementation because they have deficiencies in their diet. So creatine is one of those things where you can only get red meat and fish. So if you have a vegan or vegetarian athlete or person, they might need to use creatine to gain the benefits of creatine, which I'll carry on talk about later on in this live. Um, but also those who are getting that regular intake of meat and fish, but they want that extra to try and push their targets and get close to those goals that they've set for themselves. So the pros of creatine, one of them are it allows you to work harder for longer. Numerous studies have shown how creatine improves the performance of athletes during intense exercise by reducing the regeneration time of ATP. So ATP is the energy source that we use for our muscles, and if it regenerates that, then we can work harder for a lot longer. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence as well. Anyone that you know that has had creatine and they've done it properly. So by properly, I mean they've done the loading phase, which is often suggested. Loading phase normally includes 20 milligrams of creatine a day for, I think it was 10 days, or it might just be a week. No, it was 2 weeks actually. It was for, yeah, 14 days, and then after that, we 5 milligrams a day. Um, every day whilst you train, even on the rest days, you still take it like periodically. The reason why you do the 20 milligrams is to try and saturate the muscles, so it's used to the creatine and it can be absorbed way easier. But yeah, those who have done it in that fashion have definitely seen that being able to work harder for longer, that kind of regeneration, that ability to progress week on week on week, especially right at the beginning. There are definitely anecdotal evidence to support that. But like I just said, there are numerous studies that also support um, creatine's ability to improve performance in athletes. Another potential pro is that it increases muscle output or power output. Sorry, literature once again shown that creatine supplementation has a positive effect on peak power output. The study shown saw an increase in power output, total work capacity, and of time trials and cyclists, sprinters, and swimmers. So there is an athletic application to using creatine, but that's not to say that you can't use it unless you are an athlete. There is day-to-day benefits of creatine, which one of which is to help brain function. Studies have shown that consuming between 5 and 20 milligrams of creatine a day results in better reasoning and short-term memory. So you're not restricted to just training and benefits from this. You are also getting cognitive benefits from taking creatine regularly. But like I said, you can get this through just eating. You can just get it through red meat, regular consumption of red meat and fish. But if you do have deficiencies of this nutrient in your diet, then having something like creatine can definitely boost that, and you'll feel the benefits of it, um, as said by the studies. But there are some potential cons. Like with anything that you take, there are potential cons. So although creatine is widely known as a very safe supplement, there have been some cases of negative effects. A lot of times, the negative effects and cases that have been proposed have been in the forms of very specific case studies rather than mass studies. So a lot of the studies that include a large sample size, for example, or have been done over a large spread of time, have found very little to no a noticeable negative change. But there have been some studies that have shown, for example, bloating. So during the loading phase, which is advised when taking a creatine, as I previously mentioned, you often take 20 to 25 milligrams a day, which results in an increase in water retention around the muscles, thus increasing your weight and causing bloating. So if your goal overall is to lose weight, and weight in the form of numbers on a scale, then if you cycle in creatine into your daily intake of supplementation, then you will probably see a decrease in how quickly you lose weight as it increases your water retention. Um, this will probably be a problem for you if you are like I said, if you are aiming for weight loss in general. But if it does get to the point where you know that you want the benefits of creatine, but you don't want the negative drawbacks of the bloating, of the muscles being filled with water as much as has been reported, then taking an intake below 10 grams will probably minimize this from happening. So, like I said, most people would probably be advised to do that loading phase of 2 weeks to have 20 milligrams a day. But it's not always necessary. You can always just have that 5 milligrams a day. It will just take a little bit longer for your muscles to get saturated in with the creatine. But it's if that is a concern for you, then definitely just do 5 milligrams a day and just have it consistently every single day throughout the year, and you should have little to no problems with that. To be fair, kidney problems have also been reported from some certain studies. Creatine is metabolized in the body in the form of, and it forms metabolites, which are filtered through the kidney and excreted as urine. An increase in metabolites may place excessive stress on the bladder and the kidney. But like I said, that study, for example, was done in a very small sample size. It's on the older population as well. So there's not to say that a lot of the times when you see studies, correlation isn't always causation. So you'll probably see that study and think, oh, if I have that, then I have kidney problems. There's nothing to say that those people that were used, which as it was a small sample size, you don't know how their kidneys were performing before the study. They don't know what their dietary restrictions were or their dietary intake was throughout the study. It's just looking at creatine. They had creatine and then they had kidney problems. There was no reliability or validity checks throughout the study. So it's always something to bear in mind whenever anyone mentions anything about a study. You kind of need to do your due diligence and trying to look into it. But from the common consensus when it comes to creatine is that it's genuinely a very safe supplement to have. It's something that has a lot of benefits, both cognitive and in terms of training purposes. But it's something that I've taken myself, and I've seen ample benefits from it. And it's something that I definitely recommend people to take if they can take it consistently, because that's the thing. Um, it needs to be done regularly. Another supplementation that's probably common is very commonly spoken about are BCAAs. So BCAA stands for branched chain amino acids. BCAAs are the building blocks of protein. So BCAAs are seen as essential as the body does not make it on its own, so it is reliant on our food for its supplement. There are three types of BCAAs: leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Leucine helps with protein synthesis, tissue regeneration, and metabolism. Excuse me. Isoleucine aids wound healing, helps the production of many of our hormones, and supports our immune system. Valine also plays a part in our protein synthesis as well as supporting energy levels. So there are multiple benefits from BCAAs, as I just said. Um, it's something that, like I mentioned, it's something that you can get from food. But like with any supplementation, if you don't have that regular intake of food that includes micro, macro nutrients in its correct quantities to suit your output. So someone who is just living day to day, walking to work, has very moderate to low exercise output, they won't need the same level of macro and micronutrient intake as someone who's very active, trains 4 or 5 times a week, and to a very high level. So it's always dependent on how much exercise and how much movement you actually take part in. But something like BCAAs can be beneficial for those even that aren't training, because it kind of it fills a gap that probably will be there because you're not consuming the right amount of food, or enough of the right food anyway. So the pros of BCAAs include protein synthesis. BCAAs have been shown to aid the building of muscle. However, this is only the case if you consume an adequate amount of protein alongside the regular intake of BCAAs. So it's not a one-stop shop. So you can't just simply have BCAAs and think you're going to get massive muscles. You kind of need to have that regular intake of protein above the recommended amount to see the protein synthesis accelerated at the rate that is suggested by a lot of these studies. Um, Coincidentally, it also improves performance. So studies have shown that regular intake of BCAAs have seen to improve strength and endurance goals. A study in 2013 saw college athletes who consumed BCAAs compared to the control group had a reduction in the levels of substances in their body that indicated muscle fatigue as well as increasing energy metabolism. So what that study basically said was BCAAs not only helps your helps you in performance, it basically reduces your body's ability or your body's release of chemicals that are in the blood that show muscle fatigue. So it helps you get move more for a lot longer. Another benefit was muscle retention during illness or muscle damage. A 2016 study found that maintaining a high protein diet including BCAAs, will maintain muscle mass in people with chronic disease such as cancer. It's also been shown that BCAAs can help reduce muscle damage um, and therefore DOMS after endurance activities. As previously mentioned, it reduces the number of the levels of substances in your blood that indicate muscle fatigue. So, but it also reduces the amount of muscle um, loss or atrophy during when you're ill. So a lot of times people get so heartbroken about taking a couple of days off. If you're really concerned about taking a couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months off, and you're bedbound, for example, BCAAs have been shown to reduce that your body's ability to lose muscle mass. So it's definitely something to consider. But there are, like we mentioned, with anything there are definitely cons that have been found. Cons is it should not be used instead of high quality protein sources. Although the three branched chain amino acids have make up 35% of all the amino acids in the muscle protein. Numerous studies have shown that having a variety of quality protein sources are better than simply having BCAAs. So, like with anything, like we've said right at the beginning, the best source of any of these nutrients comes through food. These are just meant to be supplementation. So if you can't get that level that you is required for you to reach your goal or just for your daily intake, then that's when supplementation is used to help you get over that line. Or if you're working towards a target and you need to work towards a different goal that's not your daily recommended amount, but the amount that you need to reach that goal, then this is what you need to kind of push you over that line. But there has been one potential drawback that has been reported by multiple studies is the depletion of vitamin B levels. So vitamin B is also a critical for amino acid metabolism, but can be depleted by having high doses of BCAAs. The way to prevent this is to consume plenty of vitamin B foods such as leafy greens, broccoli, lentils, and oranges. This was also a case study that was included quite a small sample size, so I'd probably take that information with a pinch of salt. But it's definitely something to consider if you've already got notable vitamin D deficiencies. But as long as you have ample greens in your food in your diet, then there is no problem having BCAAs included as part of your supplementation intake. Um, but like we briefly mentioned as well, a lot of people tend to not have a lot of greens in the diet. Where we live in a world where everything's quite fast food, everything's fast paced. You often get your carbohydrates, your fats, and your protein sorted, but a lot of times the micronutrients are lacking behind. Where there are supplementation where you just have the green shakes, so it kind of has the benefits of all the greens, so it has all the vitamins, the minerals, the macronutrients that you'd get from having leafy greens and green vegetables in general. Excuse me, but the only drawback is you don't get the fiber that's associated with having vegetables and fruits. So although you'll get the benefits from it, but you won't get the fiber that also comes along with it. So you won't be able to ingest and digest the food appropriately. So as we've mentioned throughout this live, supplementation should only be used if you're unable to reach your daily intake. Of that said nutrient, if you are unable to get it from your food, when you consume it through your food, you will not only be having protein, but also all the other nutrients as well. So like we mentioned, if you're going to try and reach your protein goals and you're consistent at trying to have 3, 4, 5 meals a day, whatever the goal is, and you made sure that every time you ate, there was a ample amount of protein. You're not only going to get protein from that meal, like chicken, rice, and veg, for example. You'll get the macronutrients from the vegetables. You'll get the carbohydrates from the rice. You'll get the macronutrients from all three. So you're not going to be restricted in just getting protein, for example. Like you won't get that from food. You'll always get some level of fat, some level of carbs, some level of fiber. So it's gonna be always gonna be balanced. You kind of need when it comes to anything to do with diet, it needs to be balanced. So um, always use supplementation as an asset, not to be dependent on it. So you kind of need to be very wary of your dietary intake currently and what you need to push you over that edge or get you to the point where you're reaching your targets. Or if you're not reaching your targets, you kind of have to sit down and look at your diet and think, okay, what am I lacking? What do I need more of? What supplements do I need? And then go from there. The last thing you need if you're starting out in the gym is to buy a bunch of these supplements, not have anywhere near your daily intake of anything, and think this is going to be fixing all your problems. You'll probably do something, but not enough to keep you going. And yeah, a lot of the time people focus on muscle building and recovery as the importance, but micronutrients on a daily function and for the daily function and athletic performance is critical. So although people are so hell bent on looking at protein intake and BCAAs and creatine, a lot of people just often just forget just to have regular fruit, veg on a regular basis, just to keep your body functioning at that top level. So yeah, so that's all there is for your quick rundown on supplementation. If you saw the Instagram post, you probably realized that you're probably getting loads of emails about Black Friday sales from your local gym companies and supplement companies. Hopefully, this has educated you about what you need, why you need it, and how often you need it. But if you've got any questions, I'll stick around for a little bit and I'll answer any of your questions that you've got. thank you guys for watching. And if you've got any questions after you're watching this at a later time, then drop in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Good evening. Have a good evening.